Hey everybody, we are back with another great interview, and today I have Josh Steimle on the line. He's the founder of MWI, which is a digital marketing agency that he founded back in, I believe, 1999. Is that correct, Josh?
That's right, Chris.
Awesome. So I know you're also a writer for Forbes, and you write about startups and entrepreneurship. What did I miss? What else would you like people to know about you?
Well, I'm also a dad. I have two kids and I'm married and I'm into trail running, skateboarding. I still think of myself as an artist. That's what I originally set out to do before I started a business. I grew up wanting to be an artist and a designer, and then I got sidetracked and got into entrepreneurship, and that became my passion.
Nice. So you kind of fell into it. Now, where do you live? Do you live in Hong Kong?
I live in Hong Kong. I've been here for about 2.5 years.
Beautiful. I was actually there about a year ago, actually last December, and we had a blast. My wife loves the shopping there, and I think it's just a great place for business. What prompted you to move out there?
Uh, Kind of non-traditional reasons. Most people move to Hong Kong because they got a job here. There's a lot of finance jobs going on here. There's a lot of real estate. There's a lot of business being transacted here in Hong Kong. It's the gateway to China. That's kind of its traditional role. But my wife and I, we moved here because a few years ago we started, uh, we adopted our first daughter, and then we started feeling like we wanted to adopt again, and we started looking to China. And we, one day, as we were looking into this adoption from China, we just said, why don't we just move over there? And so we started looking at moving to China, but then we realized moving to China is a little bit much. Maybe we should take a first step. And so then we started looking at Taiwan and Singapore and Hong Kong, and we ultimately settled on Hong Kong and decided to move here. And so we just up and moved. We brought our two kids over and moved here, and it's been great.
That's amazing. So, what year was that you moved over there?
2013.
Okay, so you started your company. You were living in the States at that time?
We were living in the States. We were in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we had been there for about 14 years. That's where we went to school. That's where we met and got married, and that's where I started my business. And I had just brought on a partner in the U.S., and some other circumstances made it possible for us to move anywhere. And so yeah, we just up and moved. We just kind of, it was kind of a crazy thing. I mean, people were saying, wait, you're moving where? And we said, yeah, we're going to move to Hong Kong. Have you ever lived there before? No. Do you speak Chinese? No. Why are you doing this? It'll be fun. So
Why not? It's an
yeah, why not?
adventure. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. So take me back to your entrepreneurial journey. What prompted you to start MWI? And I guess give us a little bit of a background on what your company does.
Sure. Uh, so to really go back, I've always been into, you hear this story sometimes from entrepreneurs, how when they were little kids, they did things to make money. And that's kind of how it started for me. I've just always been doing little things to make money here and there on the side. And when I was in high school, I started a business selling skateboard stuff, kind of a skate shop business. And at this time, I still thought I wanted to be an artist, but then I went to college. And while I was at college, I realized, wow, you can study business, you can study entrepreneurship. I had no idea. I was totally ignorant that you could study this stuff. I thought people just started businesses. I didn't realize you studied it. So I was in college, and I thought, wow, I want to get into this business stuff. This is what I really want to do. And so I started studying business, and then while I was in college, this was in the late 90s, so this is when the whole dot-com boom was going on, and I had picked up some web design skills, and I got a job with a startup in Provo, Utah called mycomputer.com, and this is the company that became Omniture, which got bought out for 1.8 billion by Adobe a few years later. And
Wow.
so I was there right when this company that became a unicorn was getting started. I was part of kind of the original small team of 20 people or so. And I just had this great experience there. And I was like, man, I have got to start my own business. I can't stand being a worker bee in this company. Like, I want to start something like this. I was looking at the head guys, the founders, and I thought, man, they're having so much fun. Or at least it looked like fun to me. And so I had been married for about 4 months. And I told my wife, I was like, I want to quit my job and start a business. She's like, well, we're college students. We got nothing to lose. So sure, let's go ahead. So we started the business in 1999, and this has been the only job I've been able to keep more than 5 months. So
Okay, so you quit your job in college. What year were you in college?
I was in my junior year, so I had about 2 years left of college. I did a master's degree in information systems management, so I was working on this integrated degree when I started my business.
Okay, and so you started it. How did it go for the first few years? Was it instant success, or did it take a lot of hustle and work and struggle?
It was instant failure, and then it was a lot of struggle, and I'm still working on that success part. But yeah, I started the business, and I had this idea that you started a business, and then people just came and they hired you. And so I started doing web design. That's what I knew how to do. So I was doing freelance web design out of my apartment, and I just thought, yeah, I'll throw up a website and people will come hire me. And I threw up a website and I quit my job, and then nobody hired me.
Nothing
And I
happened,
realized,
huh?
wow, I need to learn something about marketing here. But things worked out, and slowly I would get a client here, get a client there, and then it grew, and then I hired people, and it grew more. And then, as it turns out, entrepreneurship is a little more complicated, and so there are a lot of ups and downs over the years, but it's worked out.
That's great. So it's really nice that you got to stick with that and you didn't give up through the struggle. I feel like so many entrepreneurs just give up after, a few months or a couple of years of just tough work and not seeing the success that they want. So where are you today? Let's fast forward. What kind of revenue are you generating? Where are you guys at? How many employees? And what does your business look like? What kind of services or products do you have now?
Sure. So right now we're a boutique agency. So we have about 12 employees. We do somewhere around 1.3 million in revenue right now. But to give an accurate picture, we actually went through a kind of a tough time about 2.5, 3 years ago, right before I moved to Hong Kong, where we almost went out of business, and we were down to maybe 10,000 a month in revenue. I mean, it was like we lost all our clients. We had a really bad spot there. And so we came back from that, and now we're up to somewhere a little bit over 100,000 in revenue. I don't know offhand because we closed like 30,000 in new recurring revenue last month. And so I don't have the latest figures, but
Nice.
we came back from that. And so now the business is growing again quite rapidly, and so I'm hoping that a year from now we're doing around 3 million in revenue.
And what kind of services are you providing to get that revenue?
Sure. So part of our business is web design. So we design and we build websites, but most of our business is focused around marketing. So it's search engine optimization. We manage paid search campaigns for our clients. We do content marketing, so we're blogging, we're writing content, we're developing infographics. We do social media marketing, so we're setting up social media campaigns and managing those for our clients. Ultimately, we're a lead generation firm. So clients come to us when they need sales, they need revenue, they need growth, essentially. We're kind of like a company full of growth hackers. So we figure out how to help companies grow.
Nice. And are you working with like early stage startups that have raised capital or like solopreneurs, lifestyle entrepreneurs, small businesses? What's kind of your bread and butter client?
Our bread and butter is more established businesses, actually. We do work with some startups, but because of the rates we charge, a lot of startups can't afford what we do. And so we tend to work with more established businesses that are a little bit further along than startups, although we do have some startups as clients. So we work with all types of companies. We've got everything from self-storage companies to dentists to law firms to large insurance companies. We have a client called Beard Brand that they sell beard oil. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I can't
Beard
really grow
oil?
much of a beard myself, but you've got these hipsters out there and you've got these guys who grow the big, thick beards, and apparently they need beard oil, and this company sells a ton of beard oil, and we help
That's
them
not
sell
the
that.
the
So
dollar like beard club, is it?
no, it's not that, but it's that type of thing. It's really a unique, fun business to be
Nice.
working with.
Nice. So let's go back to whenever you guys almost went out of business. I always find those stories really interesting, and you seem like a really tenacious guy. Like you hustled through college, you quit your job, you started a company, you struggled, and now you have a seven-figure business. And what happened to take you guys down to 10K a month, and what did you do to get you back up to where you are today?
The issue that we had is that we we had a model. Well, I had a model for a while before I brought on my partner. I had a model where I had a business with 10 employees and we were doing okay, but we had a lot of struggles. We were bringing on a lot of debt, and it got to this point where I was going into so much debt and I wasn't getting paid. I went for 4 years without getting paid a dime by the business. I was working 80, 100-hour weeks. I was sleeping at the office. I was sleeping on the floor under my desk or in the lobby, and it was just killing me. And it got to the point in about 2007 where I said, I can't do this anymore. Something's got to change. I mean, there's something to be said for tenacity, but there's something to be said for giving up when it's the right decision to give up too. And it just got to the point where I was like, 4 years of not getting paid, something's wrong here. I've got to change something. And so I got rid of my office. I laid off all my employees, put them all on contract, and I essentially became the solo man in the business. And then I had this network of contractors who were doing the work. And I did that for a few years, and that worked out okay. And I eventually developed a relationship with one company that I was outsourcing all my fulfillment to. So I was the sales and marketing guy, landing clients, and then I had this partner who was getting all the work done. Well, the trouble with having a partner is you really put all your eggs in one basket when you have one guy who's doing all your work. And he made a hire that didn't work out, and that hire basically lost all our clients, just ruined our business.
Oh man.
And that's what pretty much put us under. That combined with all the debt that I had brought on, because my hands were really tied because of the debt we had. I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. So that's what took us down to almost zero. So then I went out and I found a new company to outsource to, and I brought on a full-time partner to handle sales for me because sales was not what I was strong at. So between me and my partner doing sales, we started building up the company again, and we had this new partner. But then we realized outsourcing isn't working for us. We were growing really fast, and when we were outsourcing all the fulfillment, we just couldn't control the quality of the work. We couldn't control the culture and the way work was getting done. And we realized we've got to bring this back in-house. So that's been the work that we've been focusing on for the last 18 to 24 months, is bringing all that work in-house, building our in-house team. And that's tough work too. It's tough to find the right people sometimes. And sometimes we've hired definitely the right people, and sometimes we've hired people that then we realize, oh, this isn't going to work out. And so now that we're getting the right people in the right seats on the bus, as Jim Collins talks about in Good to Great, we're really noticing that things are taking off, and we've got this machine that's humming along nicely now that we feel like we can scale, and we want to grow a $30 million a year agency here. And so we're getting those pieces in place right now, and it's looking a lot better. It's looking good.
Nice. So basically the way that you bounce back, and let me make sure I heard this correctly. So whenever you started to pull back your employees and you had quality control, so you weren't outsourcing, is that when you noticed that your revenue numbers started to climb?
They started to climb before that. I mean, it really started with sales with my partner. My partner, Corey Blake, he's just an incredible salesman, and he's not one of these high-pressure slick guys, but he knows how to explain what we do, and he knows how to show the value of what we do to clients. And so he was just, and it also goes back to the writing that I've been doing for Forbes. So I got this gig to start writing for Forbes about 3 years ago. And at first I just did it because I loved writing. But then I wrote an article about SEO, and all of a sudden we got all these phone calls and all these emails from people saying, hey, I read your article and we want to hire you to do work for our company. And I was like, wow, this is
This is
powerful
great
stuff.
publicity.
Yeah, and so we started getting a lot of leads from the writing I was doing, and then my partner was just closing these things left and right. So that's what was really funneling the business to us. But then we were getting the business and not being able to retain it. And that's when we started building the in-house team so that we could up our retention numbers.
Okay, so you had you doing the content, bringing in the leads, you had your partner converting the leads, and then you said, look, the highest quality way to fulfill what we're doing and to keep our reputation solid is to bring it in-house.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, it's no good if you're bringing in clients and then they're leaving 2 months later, and that's the issue we were having is we just weren't controlling the quality there. And so, yeah, bringing it in-house allowed us to control the quality, and then we've seen those retention numbers go way up.
That's great. How did you get the gig writing for Forbes?
Man, that was the luckiest break of my entire career so far. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's been interesting. I mean, we're a marketing firm, so you would think, yeah, you're a marketing firm, you should be able to do your own marketing, right? And we've been able to grow, and we've been able to have good spots in the past. But when I sat down with a friend of mine, and she was a PR guru, and then I noticed, I was asking her, I was saying, hey, I want to get some of these badges on my website, as seen on this publication, Mashable and TechCrunch and Forbes. How do I get those badges on my website? How do I get picked up by the media? And I was looking for some advice from her. I just wanted to get those logos on my website. And she said, your story, or she said, your company is not very interesting. I mean, you run a marketing agency, so what? So does everybody else. No big deal. But she said, your story as an entrepreneur is interesting, so that's what you should be telling. And so she helped me get some placements in the media, but then I noticed that she was writing for Forbes, and I asked her, I said, how did you get this gig writing for Forbes? I mean, I like writing. I was blogging a lot, and I enjoyed that. And I thought, man, that would be fun to write for Forbes. So I asked her, and she said, oh, it's this contributor model, and people write for Forbes for free because they get to write for Forbes. And she said, I'll introduce you to my editor. And so she introduced me to her editor. And the next thing I know, the guy's saying, hey, we want you to write for Forbes. I read your blog. I love your stuff. Just keep writing the same stuff and we'll put it up on Forbes. So that was about 3 years ago. And I started writing these articles, and that just changed our business. We went from, at that point when we started, I was at that low point where we were doing about $10,000 a month in revenue. And we shot up to over 100,000 in revenue within 12 months after I started writing for Forbes. It was just like a fire hose after that. So
just by getting the gig to write and contribute articles to Forbes, you literally 10x'd your business.
Yeah, it was a direct result of getting on Forbes. It wouldn't have happened without my partner doing the sales, but it also wouldn't have happened without doing that writing for Forbes.
It's amazing how, looking back, you can kind of connect the dots, but at the time, it just kind of fell into place. I think it's great. In most entrepreneurs' journeys, there's kind of these serendipitous moments that happen that kind of change the trajectory of where you're at, right? And I think if you're open to those things, that they'll kind of fall in place. It's not something that you can plan for, but I feel like the more open you are to it, the more likely it is to happen. And do you feel like that's kind of how this came to be, as you were just open, just looking, and just kind of fell in your lap?
Yeah, I look back to that conversation I had with my friend, and I think, it came down to one question. It was just me sitting there asking, hey, how'd you get this Forbes gig? If I hadn't asked that question, where would I be today? And the fact that, I wasn't looking to do that kind of writing, but I had been blogging for 10 years. And my blog had never made me a dime. I never got leads off my blog. I just enjoyed writing. But because I had been blogging, I had written like 600 posts or something over a 10-year period. So when the opportunity came along, I was ready for it. I was ready to write for Forbes. I had a lot to learn, but yeah, it was the right place at the right time. And that opportunity to write for Forbes led to writing for Entrepreneur Magazine and now Mashable and TechCrunch. And I write for about 10 publications, and now I can get into pretty much any publication I want to because I have this track record. And that led to a book deal as well. So I've got my first book coming out in March, and that's a direct result of writing for Forbes as well. So it's just led to all sorts of blessings.
That's great. What's the name of the book?
The book is Chief Marketing Officers at Work. So I'm interviewing about 30 chief marketing officers, CMOs. So I've interviewed the CMOs from PayPal, Spotify. I've got the CMOs from Twitter coming up, Nestle, the Home Depot. I've been able to go out and get interviews with these top CMOs from these top companies, and it's going to be just all these interviews put into one book.
Wow, that's great. What advice would you give to somebody that kind of wanted to follow in your footsteps? Maybe looking at a college guy or a college lady today that's like, you know, maybe I have some college debt and I'm working a job that I'm not too happy with, and I know I want to be an entrepreneur, or I've heard about it like you, and you said, man, I guess I could go this route too. What's one piece of advice that you would give a new entrepreneur starting off?
Don't do it.
Get a job.
No. Yeah. No, it's been funny over the years how a lot of my friends who went the traditional route, they went to business school and then they went to one of the accounting firms or to a McKinsey or something, and I'll sit down and talk with them and they say, man, I wish I was doing what you were doing. You're this entrepreneur, you've got your business, you have all this freedom. And they would tell me this during that period when I wasn't getting paid a dime, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, I wish I had a job, man. I wish I could just get a paycheck. And so it's funny. I mean, there's this grass is greener mentality sometimes. But, you know, even when I wasn't getting paid, I loved being an entrepreneur. I loved running a business. I did love that control. And I loved that it was all on me, that succeed or fail, it was all up to me. So my advice, you know, I got some great advice when I was still a college student. I was able to interview David Neeleman, who was the founder of JetBlue, and I asked him the same question. I said, you know, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur who's just starting out, but maybe doesn't know what he wants to do? And he said, dive into something and get your hands dirty. Just do something. For him, I believe his career path was that he got a job working for an airline or for a travel agency, and he just learned that business. And after a year or so, he spotted an opportunity. He said, hey, here's a problem, and I have an idea on how to fix this problem. And he started a business out of it. And, you know, I think a lot of college kids get the idea that, oh, I need to go start the next Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or something. Well, those companies are like the Kobe Bryants, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, you know, a lot of people play basketball. Not everybody's going to be Kobe Bryant. And there are a lot of great businesses out there that you never hear about because they're only making $5 million a year or something.
Yeah, everybody thinks they have to start the next unicorn billion-dollar company, but there's nothing wrong with making $1 million or $2 million a year. Yeah,
or even just making, you know, 80,000 or 100,000 a year, but having great flexibility and having a great lifestyle.
Absolutely.
I love in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, I love how he says, you don't want $1 million in the bank. You want the lifestyle that you think having $1 million in the bank is going to bring you. Well, maybe you can have that lifestyle earning 50,000 a year or something. I mean, I know a family here in Hong Kong that they got a sailboat a few years ago and they sailed around the world for 2 years with their kids. Now, they didn't make a lot of money while they were sailing around the world, but they made enough to do that. And how many people can say, yeah, I sailed around the world for 2 years? I mean, that's an amazing experience for that family. And a lot of people would think, oh, I need to earn $1 million before I do that. Well, maybe you can start a business that makes 50,000 a year and you can go do that at the same time. I just met another family here in Hong Kong that they're traveling around the world for a year. They're living in a different country every month for 1 year. And the guy runs a little internet business. He buys stuff and then he sells it on Amazon. I mean, it's not a super fascinating business, but he makes enough money that he can travel the world with his family and live in a different place every month.
I love hearing those stories.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many of these stories out there that you just don't hear about because they're not the unicorn story. But if you're willing to look around and find these opportunities, they're all over the place.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing your knowledge here because that's kind of the whole reason behind doing this show is to show people there are so many different ways to create income and to have freedom. And last year my wife and I actually did what you're talking about. We took a full year and traveled from Iceland all through Europe and Africa and Asia, literally went around the world, and we documented it, trying to show people like, look, this is possible. There's so many different ways you can do this. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to start doing this. All it takes is the desire and, having some kind of lifestyle business to support it. So it's great to hear that that you believe that same thing and you have, personal experiences with people that have done it as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm over here in Hong Kong. I mean, I live on a subtropical island and I've got these mountains right behind my house. I do trail running. I just run out my door. I run up into the mountains and it's this amazing environment that I love being in. And people think, oh, Hong Kong's super expensive. No, it's not expensive where we live. And we've made it work out for us. And it's just mentality. I mean, your mind holds you back. Your mind tells you that's not possible. I can't do that. But there's so many different ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think that's what true wealth is. True wealth isn't having money in the bank. It's having the freedom. I mean, here it is. There's the shirt, right?
Oh, there you go. I love
Freedom.
it.
I mean, that's what wealth is about, is having the freedom to do what you want. It's not about the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, do you have a book that you would consider required reading for an entrepreneur?
I have a bunch of books. I love reading. I read a ton of books. I think I'm audible.com's biggest customer. I listen to audiobooks. That's how I get my reading in. I spend a lot of money on Audible, and I buy a lot of books for my company, and I make all the team members read books too. So they're tired of me sending them books all the time. And so I have different books that I love depending on the situation. But the 4-Hour Work Week, which I mentioned, I mean, that's for somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, like that's the go-to book.
Yeah.
I think it's a classic. It's been around for 10 years. It's coming up on its 10th anniversary, I think, this year or next year. But that is an amazing book that changed my life. I mean, I've read a lot of books where I thought, this is a great book, but I didn't really do anything differently after I read the book.
No
The 4-Hour
actionable.
Work Week. Yeah, they're not exactly actionable. I mean, like Good to Great by Jim Collins, that's a great book. It's really fascinating. It's really interesting. But I didn't really change my behavior after reading it. But I
It's
read the
more
4-Hour Work
philosophy,
Week.
right? Yeah, like that. The Good to
Yeah,
Great was one of the first ones I read in high school, and that's what inspired me to get started, actually.
yeah. So I mean, that's a great book. It's really interesting and it's helpful. I mean, it's helped me with some of my hiring decisions. But the 4-Hour Work Week was a book where I read it and I set it down and I said, wow, I am going to change everything about my business. And I did. And it's worked and it's been successful for me. So I think that's probably my first go-to book, but there are so many good books out there.
Awesome. Well, Josh, do you have a favorite quote or a mantra or kind of a guiding purpose or mission statement that kind of guides your life or that you like to live by?
Yeah, it's 2 words. Everybody's happy. As long as everybody's happy, then that's all that matters. This is a lesson I learned when I was a little kid. I just realized, when you're happy, that's really the ultimate goal. I mean, that's the purpose of life. That's the purpose of everything we do in life is happiness. And I don't mean like fun, recreational type happiness, but like true joy, the joy that you get from that I get from being a dad and seeing my kids grow up and be nice to each other sometimes, that's true joy. And that kind of happiness, that kind of fulfillment and satisfaction, that's what life's all about. And so as long as everybody's happy, it's all good. If everybody's not happy, then something needs to be fixed. And that's our motto in our business as well, is people come to me and say, hey, what should I do in this situation with this client? And I'm like, make them happy, like figure out what it's going to take to make them happy. And as long as it's not something crazy and unreasonable, then let's make it happen. Because if everybody's happy, it's all good. If the clients are happy, then they refer more business to us and they keep paying us. If the employees, our team members are happy, then they do great work and they keep the clients happy. And then everything works out and everybody's happy. So as long as everybody's happy, it's all good.
I love it. I love it. So simple, but so powerful. Josh, thanks for being here, man. Where can people connect with you?
I blog at joshsteimle.com. That's joshsteimle.com. I'm also on Twitter at the same handle, so Josh Steimle. Those are the best ways to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here. And guys, really, really powerful lessons there. Josh, great luck on your way to 30 million.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. It's been great.
All right. Thanks.